It's just a house to some people. You know, it's an eyesore to some people. But a lot came through here.
It had this 6-story tower with a balcony. You could see Manhattan from it.
As a kid, it looked like you could see the world.
It's a 360-degree view of the city. You just walk around it, and it's just fabulous.
There was a big playroom for the children with like a little stage, and that had been, you know, a big nursery for playing up there, which is a typical thing of the period.
It was one of the first houses with an elevator in it.
It was just the biggest, pushiest house in Newark.
On the corner of Court Street and MLK Boulevard in Newark's Central Ward, there's a house on a hill. For over a century, it served as a symbol of arrival for a succession of remarkable residents. Today, it has been vacant for decades. Outside, the windows are boarded up, the property surrounded by chain link and razor wire. Inside, plaster dust covers the floor. Sunlight streams in through cracks in the brick, and rain floods the basement. But the story is written in its walls, thick layers of history that peel back to reveal the smooth stonework of a preservation project halted before its time. Tatters of wallpaper hung by Newark's first African-American millionaires. Mysterious symbols from the fraternal organization that used the building to host their meetings, and the initials of the immigrant-turned-beer baron who built the house as a monument to his success. Welcome to the Krueger Scott Mansion. That the mansion stands at all today is due in large part to a major restoration project mounted by the city of Newark in the mid-1990s. Plans were drawn up to turn the mansion into an African-American cultural center.
My understanding was I was to be the executive director of a cultural center and try to raise monies for the actual restoration.
By the time the restoration project began, the house had been vacant for nearly a decade.
Someone called me and said, the house has been broken into, it's being raided, and we went through the house and saw it in this condition. We found a dog abandoned on the 3rd floor, up in the tower.
When we went in, we were just totally devastated by what we saw on the inside of the house. And anything that was of value, of course, had been ripped out.
Before the city finally got it bricked up, everything had been stripped.
The Krueger Scott Cultural Center sponsored concerts, lectures, and festivals for the community. An African-American oral history project yielded hundreds of hours of audio-taped recollections of life in Newark from a vanishing generation of elders. The restoration part of the initiative, however, was not nearly as successful.
A new building gets built from the ground up. A restoration, whether it is a historic kind or a normal restoration of any kind of building, you have to start it from the top bottom.
The exterior envelope has been saved. That those boards are up to protect all the windows and what have you. New roof, all new chimneys. These things were critical.
The phase 1 was supposed to restore the roof, which we did, which was completed. And the phase 2 was to restore, as I will call it, a shell of the building. And that work was carried out to the 85% level. And then the money ran out.
Strict historical preservation guidelines, coupled with the deteriorated state of the building, resulted in cost overruns and interminable delays. After 7 years and $7 million, public and political support waned, and the project was halted. The last full-time resident of the mansion was self-made entrepreneur Louise Scott. Scott had relocated to Newark from her native South Carolina in 1938.
Her story was she came through and saw this house, and she said she was going to buy it.
Working days as a domestic while attending beauty school at night. She established a chain of beauty salons in the area and achieved renown as Newark's first African-American millionairess.
She was this great pillar of the black community in Newark and a success story.
She, like so many African-American women who got involved in beauty culture and what have you, really was a dynamic businesswoman who made a difference.
This is where she used to park her Cadillac, right here.
Scott maintained the mansion as both her residence and as the site of the Scott College of Beauty Culture, which provided training to generations of Newark stylists.
This was the reception area for the beauty school. The shampoo bowls used to be over here.
At one point, one woman had done 8 different people did their hair. And they would say, oh, how much work I did. And they were like exasperated. And Scott looked at us, look, when you can do 22 in a day, then you work.
This was my mom's sitting room. There used to be a brass dome.
Hardworking and civic-minded, she rechristened the mansion the Scott Cultural and Civic Center and used the house to host a variety of civic and church events.
This is my mom in 1963. This was taken every Christmas. She would invite all the kids from the neighborhood and she'd give them candy and fruit and toys.
She actually started her own daycare center there.
This was a dentist's office at one point. She had a doctor in here. Then it was used for a daycare center. My mama used to use this part for a church. This area here, she used to broadcast radio shows from. And then she turned this into a beauty shop for 2 students she had that had graduated.
Under her supervision, the house was spared near certain destruction during a late 1960s urban renewal program that sought to widen what was then known as High Street.
There were some urban renewal programs that showed that house being wiped off the face of the map.
Mrs. Scott had the mansion certified as an historic landmark with both the state and national registers of historic places. Louise Scott was an inspiring model of perseverance and achievement to the African American community in Newark, with her success symbolized in the 1958 purchase of the mansion from the Scottish Rite Masons. The house cost $85,000. She paid in cash.